Hello there, my name is Cesar Ramirez, and today we are going to be breaking down some of the scenes in CHOiCES. First of all, if you haven't seen my film CHOiCES yet, I will be sure to leave a link up here somewhere and also a link in the description as well. And if you haven't seen the making of CHOiCES, which talks about my story and experience making that film and how it impacted my life tremendously, I will also leave a link up here as well as in the description. We start off with this wide shot of this one character and this long array of blue lockers. And right off the bat, you can tell the color palette of the film is blue. I think for me, a lot of that came from just wanting to further emphasize that sort of isolation and that loneliness that the character feels, how like all of these elements around him are pressuring him, within of himself, and how he doesn't know what to say or do. Right here in particular, we have, Daniel's shirt, which is white. And white is also shown in a lot of clothing that Daniel wears. There's the white polo, there's the white gloves that he has when he's outside. Something to show just like that innocence and that purity that Daniel has. He just is lost with what to do and what to say. And I also want to point out, like, there's, of course, the backpack that he wears. Yeah, I just wanted to incorporate like that big heavy backpack, and of course that causes him to like slouch a little bit or hunch, and that's just something that also just shows like that, just that meek, quiet sort of person. And of course right here, we have the title, CHOiCES. And I do want to point something out about the title. You'll notice that all of the letters are capitalized except for the I. The reason I did this was because I like to play around with like the letters of the title, because I think that can also show just the type of film that it is. The I in this case is lowercase because for me it looks like a person, the eye, the circle of the eye looks like the head, and then the lower part of it looks like the body. And then of course right next to it you have, CHO, which is, the choi in CHOiCES, and next to that is, the CES, the CES of CHOiCES. And the reason I did this was because I wanted to show like these sort of walls, like, that are just in between the main character, and just seems like they're trapping him. Next, I want to talk about the shot where we are introduced to Trevor. Yeah, something that I want to point out here is we can see, as I mentioned, how Daniel's clothing white shows like that innocence and purity. You can see Trevor's clothes are all, black. We have, we got the black hoodie here. We have the black jogging pants. Same with the friend. We have this black hoodie right here. These dark pants. The antagonist, really, a lot of, if you think of like your favorite films, a lot of the antagonists wear like dark clothing. And I think for me, that's just something I wanted to incorporate, especially with the whole, black versus white, and how those colors are two polar opposites. And this is exactly the case. Daniel's more introverted and to himself, whereas Trevor here is more extroverted and, a bully. I also want to point out, like the whole thing about how Trevor has his friend to back him up. So, we have Trevor here, we have his friend there, and then of course we have, Daniel there, and, it's this whole 2 against 1. Obviously, Trevor here is the one that's controlling the scene, whereas Daniel doesn't know what to do. The next scene I want to talk about is the bathroom scene, and in particular when Trevor and his friend are leaving and they run into Mr. Reyes and his introduction. So we can see like his stance right here. His arms are like crossed, just like showing that intimidation that he has. And, it's obviously working in this case because, we see Trevor and his friend sort of like look next to each other. They're not entirely sure of what to do. He needs like that support. And even though, we have Trevor and we have his friend. Even though it is like 2 against 1, we can. There's something about this shot that tells us that Mr. Reyes has the power in this particular shot here. And this is where like Trevor starts to like stutter, like, hey, Mr. Reyes, we're just heading to class, So he's obviously stuttering a lot more. Where in the previous shot where we saw him with Daniel, he knew what to say. He was acting all big and tough and strong. And of course, when we reach his confrontation with Mr. Reyes, he's all like, "Oh, I was just using the bathroom, and we're heading to class. Yeah, okay." And so he's just stuttered. So he does feel a bit intimidated. The next shot we have is when Mr. Reyes brings Daniel into his office for the very first time. Right off the bat, we can see right here there's this big, just open space, and I wanted to purposefully add a lot of headroom because it just shows like that whole idea of space, and like the character doesn't know exactly what to feel. His head is like kind of lost, and since this is the first time these two characters are meeting one another, Daniel has sort of that thing of like, can I trust you? Are you gonna help me? So we can see, Mr. Reyes here has more of a straight stance, and he has, with the way he's using his hands here, sort of like that thinking, like he wants to help Daniel, but he knows that Daniel is a very shy person, so he needs to do whatever he can to help better Daniel's choices in life. And we can also see here that even though Mr. Reyes is looking at Daniel isn't quite exactly making eye contact because, he has trouble with that. The next time we go to Mr. Reyes's office, we can see right here that headspace that was in the first shot, we can see is not really there as much. We have more now of a personal relationship with Mr. Reyes, and it was his guidance that showed him over to Jack, and how Jack initially helped set up these meetings with Mr. Reyes, and Daniel's happy that he has a friend, and he's really happy that Mr. Reyes is with him because he helped put Jack into his life. And we can see now in this case the eye contact between Daniel and Mr. Reyes are now more apparent. This is the scene where, Daniel is starting to build his confidence. Everything seems to start building better for Daniel. But of course, near the midpoint of the film, this exactly isn't the case. So we can see in this shot right here, Daniel walks into the office, but instead of greeting Mr. Reyes as he did last time, he totally just like walks right past him. Again, like there's that, sort of slouched position that he's in. His head is, looking down right here. Again, he just doesn't know what to do and what to say, and it's just, it's pretty heartbreaking, this whole scene in particular. Whereas like in the other times where we're in Mr. Reyes' office, it's all very static, it's all on a tripod, it's very, you got the wide shot and you have their two sides. Here it's that same thing, except when we cut to Daniel, now that shot is totally handheld and totally sporadic and out of control, because that's how his mind is right now. And that's just, it's pretty heartbreaking. And it was tough for me to act that because I don't really yell a lot. Now this shot right here is actually my favorite. It's the shot where Daniel, right after he punches Trevor, and then we get this close-up of him with his fists towards facing the camera. And there's just this shot that I really like, and I think a lot of it comes from this tree in the background. We can see like the tree here, it just has like all the branches are just like pouring out, just out of the, his head. And for me, that just shows how, all these like emotions of Daniel, like they finally came out of him. And it looks like that Daniel is on the path right now to what Trevor is on right now, like that bad path that he's on. And that whole thing is like visually showing like that anger and that tension that he's been holding inside of him for so long is finally being released. So like that tree, I think really just shows that. And right here we can see like a glimpse of like his, fists here after he punches Trevor. When I was doing the storyboards, that tree in the background wasn't part of it, but I just really, really like that. And I hopefully people may have gotten that. Probably not, but but I just still think it's pretty cool. So yeah, those are some of my scene breakdowns in CHOiCES. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Um, as far as like for next week's video, because this whole 3-part series that you've seen with the short film, a making of, and the scene breakdown, that's actually a series that I'm going to do. So with this past one, it was all about CHOiCES. And then next week, I'm going to do another 3-part series on another short film that I did. This one isn't as long and doesn't have like a huge impact as CHOiCES did, but it was still a really awesome video, and it was just really cool to to be a part of and do. So anyway, thank you for watching, and yeah.